Good afternoon all. It's been a great conference so far. My name is Sharon Chapman. I'm from the City of Bunbury and also the chairperson of the State West Library Consortia. I sound a bit like a chipmunk today because I have come down with a bit of a flu, so I do apologise for my voice. I would like to ask delegates, just remind you to have your mobile phones turned off or turned down to silent. I'd also like to acknowledge Biblioteca as our sponsors of this session and ask Ian Jago to come forward for his address. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for getting my surname right too. Well done. My surname is quite interesting. It actually means champion fighting chicken in Indonesian. So anyway, my name's Ian Jago from Biblioteca, and we're very delighted to be at PLWA again and to be able to sponsor this session. And it is a great opportunity for us and a great privilege. Our focus as a company is on library. That's what Biblioteca do. And our main focus is to increase the patron discovery and to increase the circulation as well through our Quick Connect platform. Also to drive participation and to uniquely fully integrate our cloud library, which is our ebook solution, into being able to actually borrow ebooks directly from a self-check. So you've got people come up to borrow normal books and will pop up with recommended reads for them to be able to borrow immediately ebooks. So we want to be able to fully integrate that type of content and to be able to drive participation of your patrons as well. We're also working to make your library a safe and accessible place too, outside of normal opening hours. And we have a new platform that we're about to introduce called Open Plus, and that has been incredibly popular in Denmark and the UK, where libraries now can, without staff, can actually allow patrons to access different areas of libraries and so on outside of normal opening hours. So that's something that I'll be very happy to talk to you about. Again, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity for Biblioteca to be part of this great gathering here. There's a few faces here I do know, and very happy to be able to sponsor this session with Alison Kemp from Gold Coast, and my colleague, who's not here, wherever she is, still on the stand, Kelly Knutson, and I hope I got her name correct there too, will be she's standing out there, be very, very happy to speak with you at some stage. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to be here and to sponsor this session.
Okay, so if you do have any questions, I'd like to ask you to just, like we've done before, have them at the end of the session with the roving microphone. Now I'd like to introduce Alison Kemp. Alison is Executive Coordinator of Library and Customer Service at the Gold Coast City Council. Alison is included in her responsibilities is community programming, partnerships and marketing. Alison has worked at a number of library services, both large and small, across Queensland over the past 30 years, and so has a good understanding of the opportunities and challenges presented in diverse communities. Alison has a passion for delivering sustainable library programs that build community capacity and engagement. I'd like to welcome Alison.
Doesn't that make you feel so old when they say 30 years? Bear with me while I set up. Let's just get a photo while I made a face at the mic. Good job. Thank you very much for having me in Western Australia. haven't been to Western Australia since I was 5. We apparently used to live here, but I have absolutely no memory of it. But it's beautiful. Perth is just such a gorgeous, gorgeous city. It's really clean and green and so much exciting and interesting architecture, and you've got a little bit of old and a little bit of new. I'm really loving it. It's a beautiful place. And the conference is so well organised. I actually said to Bernie last night, I think I might start coming to the WA conference instead of the Queensland one. But don't tell them that. So as I said, I haven't been here for a long time, and I actually have very little knowledge of Western Australian libraries, so I've done a little bit of internet and social media stalking, research, and I've actually found that your libraries are very similar to ours on the Gold Coast, and so I hope that I can still add some value to your conference today. I'm actually going to talk about the journey, I hate that word, that we've had on the Gold Coast with developing programs for our customers, and I call them community programs because we have a little bit of an issue in Queensland with what council calls cost shifting to state government, and so we don't call them learning or education programs, we just call them community programs, and that gets us off the hook a little bit. Just want to give you a little bit of context about the library service on the Gold Coast. So we are a network of 13 branch libraries and a mobile library service. The Gold Coast is a long stretch of 40 kilometres of beaches, a little bit of high density high rise, which you probably have all just heard of as the glitter strip. That's a really tiny little bit of the Gold Coast. If you go 20 kilometres west, you're actually in the hinterland. So beautiful mountain ranges that border the New South Wales border, and lots of rainforest walks and that sort of thing. So we have quite a diverse community. We also, in the Northern Corridor, have very, very high growth area, what we call dormitory suburbs. So thousands and thousands, just seas of homes that have popped up virtually overnight with no social infrastructure to speak of. Just lots and lots of very large houses on very small plots of land with not even really a park to speak of. So it's an interesting place, really high mortgage default, third highest in the country in that area. I think people have seen inexpensive land and built massive homes on it and then realise that they actually can't afford it after some time. So quite diverse. There's also a lot of wealth on the Gold Coast along main beach areas and that sort of thing. So it's an interesting and beautiful place to live, and like Patty, I invite you to come and have a look. We're very well supported by our local council, and we have beautiful, beautiful buildings as well. Probably not as nice as Patty's. But I'm going back to tell everybody that so that they'll get jealous and build us a new one. We're also very competitive on the Gold Coast. Which brings me to the Commonwealth Games. So our building project has almost halted. We're hosting the Commonwealth Games in 2018 on the Gold Coast. So we've had a lot of infrastructure go up. We've had trams and buildings and stadiums and pools, and it's been a fantastic legacy for the Gold Coast already, even though we haven't hosted the Games. So, but the whole city is geared up. Certainly my organisation is geared up and very, very excited to be hosting the Games next year, which would be a great opportunity for you to come visit. We'll be showcasing our libraries. So my laptop just keeps sliding off. So all of this started with a very strong belief that the role of the public library is as community capacity builder. And we've developed a program of community events that inform, engage, promote learning, encourage reading and inspire. I'm going to talk about planning first because Patty has reiterated over and over again that it's really important. And I probably learnt the hard way that it's really important. I tend to be one of those people who just jump in straight away, and so when I arrived on the Gold Coast I went, let's do all this, and they kind of looked at me like, yeah, right. So we took a step back and started some really serious planning. And one of the first things which seems really, really logical is to just identify who your target market is. I know that would seem like an easy thing to do, but just bear with me. If you could just turn to the person beside you or behind you, if you don't have anyone beside you, and just say in just 1 or 2 words, like you were talking to an advertising campaign manager who said, who's your target market? Who is your target market for your public library? You only get 1 or 2 words. No cheating. I think you're cheating. That's it. I can see the obedient people in the audience because they've stopped talking. As you know, and are well aware that in a public library it's very difficult to actually identify who our target market is, and in fact it's everyone. When you were trying to run through all of those words, what you should have just summarised is everyone. And the other thing that we really need to do quite up front is work out what is our product. So again, I need you to talk to the person beside you. You can have a few more words because we have more than one product, I guess. But you know, like Coca-Cola has Coke and Tetley has tea. What do libraries do? What is our product? Go for it. You're a lively lot. All right. Wow. So, in summary, everything? Yeah. So you get the idea. It's just virtually impossible for us to be everything to everyone all of the time, even though we do try to do that. So that was our very first lesson, is we really have to try and just narrow it back into what it is that we're going to deliver at this point in time and what is our major focus. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that more further on. I just wonder if you had the Gruen project in WA here. So if you haven't seen that, it's a ABC program where they invite advertising agencies to come and prepare a campaign for something that's quite difficult to sell, and I would love to see them do a public library. So everything for everyone all of the time. I think that would be a really great challenge for them. Might even send it in. So the obvious things, or the way that we could target or minimise what it is that we were going to deliver. And when I say that, we still know that we're all things to all people all of the time, but we know that we can't do that well. It also is a really, really confusing message to put out to the community, and it's really tough on your staff because they don't know what our priorities are. And you know, they feel really stretched just at the thought of trying to do that. So we review our plan now, actually even every 6 and 12 months for our, not for our big strategic plan, but just for our program plan about what are our target areas. And the things that we look at when we're doing that is, number one, council strategic plan, because it just makes good sense to align ourselves with the agenda of the organisation that funds us. And so I was actually quite devastated last year when Council produced its strategic plan. It's 280 pages, and the word library wasn't mentioned in it once. So after I had a little rant, and everybody that would listen, we came back and thought, well, that's all right. We're still going to report against the strategic plan regardless. How do we tie ourselves in with this? For example, one of their key agendas is a digital city, and of course libraries contribute to that enormously. And so we just started, we reformatted our calendar of events that we put out, and we just called that section Digital City. And so we're just deliberately aligning ourselves all the time with that strategic plan. We also look for sort of the less written cues, things like where is the mayor hanging out? So last year, although there wasn't a lot in the strategic plan about youth in the city, the Mayor took that as a particular interest and something that he was personally invested in, and he went to things to openings of skateboard bowls and things like that. And so we thought, well, this is really important to the Mayor, and there is no wrong target market for public libraries, and so we put them in our program plan for that period. Just, we get the Mayor to come along to gigs now, which is really cool. And if he sees what we're doing, then we're more likely to keep that funding going as well. So it might sound like we're playing politics, but there is no wrong target market, and it's just about being a bit savvy where we spend our time and energy. The other thing is obviously demographics. We're a really long, as I said, coastal strip, and from one end to the other and inland are really different communities. For example, Runaway Bay, as the name might suggest, is largely retirees. 47% of the population of Runaway Bay are retired. Not even 20 kilometres west of that is one of the dormitory suburbs of Upper Coomera. Really, really, really high density living and lots of young families. When we opened the Upper Coomera Library not so long ago, the staff were astounded because the families that came in to join the library, there weren't ever, or very rarely, 1 or 2 children. They tell me there were 4 to 13 children. So lots and lots of young children in that area, but only, this far away on the map. So we have to really, we can't just say, we're going to run this. We really do have to localise what we're running at each of those libraries. Otherwise, we just cease to become relevant to those particular communities. We obviously look for gaps in services. So at Runaway Bay, for example, you would think that we would tailor all of our programs for those retirees. However, when we look in that community, they're really well resourced. They've got heaps of services. There's lots of non-government organisations and lots of support agencies and lots of social groups and U3As and all those sorts of things. So there's actually quite a lot for those retirees to do. What there isn't anything to do is for the teenagers who go to the 2 local high schools, who the only thing they can do is hang out at the shopping centre or in the library and annoy the retirees. So we do a lot of programming for the teens in that area, just to try and engage those. We also made some very key decisions very early on. So programs would no longer be tokenistic. By that I mean we used to roll out a once-a-year homage to our seniors in Seniors Week, and our multicultural communities on Harmony Day, and our Indigenous communities during NAIDOC Week. We still participate in those events. However, we've deliberately said that we will run an inclusive program all year long. So you will see programs throughout the year, instead of just a pop-up event during NAIDOC Week and go, hey, we acknowledge you exist. So we very deliberately don't do that anymore. We take a community development model approach, so we work with people rather than for them. We build on communities' existing strengths, skills and capacities. We provide opportunities for people to build relationships with each other, and we foster relationships between people who have power and resources and those that don't. Another really important and lively discussion, I think it's called positive conflict, that we've had amongst ourselves is where is our balance going to be between our services for the masses versus the minority. Just as an example, we could run story time sessions 3 times every day of the week, and when I say story time, we do a baby rhyme time, a story time and a toddler time every week in all of our libraries. We could run those 3 programs every day in all of those libraries, and they would be packed out to the rafters, and they would probably be the same people coming every day. So it's a really, really popular service, and I don't doubt that it has great value. We're doing a little bit of research around the outcomes now. However, we all know that there are groups in the community who need our time and energy, possibly a lot more than those people who are coming along to those. And so it's about this balance where we can say to council, look, we do this many programs and we have this many thousand people coming, or we can say, look, we've run these programs and only 10 of them come. And I'm talking things like our English conversation circles and our adult literacy programs and things like that. So they're a much higher investment for us, but they have better outcomes, or more important outcomes, I guess. So we have this little conversation every now and then about where is that balance for us, and that really changes over time. So, for example, depends on a new election cycle, to be honest. So when we get a whole heap of new councillors come in and they don't understand what we do, and all they're looking at the number is the numbers on the page, they want to know, well, we've got, 520,000 people in the city, why aren't they all coming to a program? And if early in that cycle, if we do these big mass programs and we can say 900 people came this week or whatever, compared to 90 people came. So, but as their understanding of what we can do and their trust in us to deliver becomes stronger, we can move away from those mass programs and we go more to the programs that perhaps have more social benefit. We've got 13 branch libraries on the Gold Coast, and we've just recently opened, or not recently, it's about 3 years ago now, the beautiful Helensvale Library, this is one of the little nookie holes in the kids area. There's that's actually one of our councillors' children, so politics. And the Upper Coomera Library is a new one, and we've got 2 new ones on the books for after the Commonwealth Games, should we have any money left in the city. So we also decided very early on, and I'm so glad that we did, planned to measure what we do. And we keep the usual statistics, like I'm sure everybody does, but we do it in a way that enables us to respond to every situation. So, for example, we collect statistics under 5 key areas, and they are reading and writing, computers and online, connected and healthy, creative and innovative, lifestyle and learning, and history and heritage. Don't just say 6. Within these groups, and they're classified further into the types of programs. So there's writing programs, children's programs, programs for small business, just anything that we can sort of clump together, creative and innovative programs, the STEM programs, which we're heavily into at the moment. And that way, and also then again down further into the demographic. So when somebody comes and says to us, what are you doing in this area? Just the mayor said, do we ever do anything for seniors? And so we're able to say, we do this many programs, and we do this many programs for seniors in online, and we do this many programs for seniors in creative, and that sort of thing. So it's a massive spreadsheet. It's well beyond my capacity to even work out how to use it. There's a lot of what they call pivot tables in it. Leona, the other coordinator, is a master at Excel, and it boggles my brain. I hope she never leaves, because we're all scary. But it's really, really well worth it. The other thing that we collect is our stories. And by this I mean just the stories from customers and the effect that the programs have had in their lives. Just flick through to a couple so you can read them. One of the ones, there's just a couple up there, but one of the ones that was really useful was we had a local councillor who is the deputy mayor, not wholly engaged in libraries. She's probably the one person who we're very careful about. Made quite a public comment one day about her conversation. There was a media inquiry about the fiscal responsibility of council, and she said, I don't know why we make cupcakes in libraries. So it was just a little flippant comment that she made, and it was so beautiful that she chose cupcakes, because we had just about 2 weeks prior to that had this beautiful letter written in from a customer. When she made that comment, it got, unfortunately, quite a bit of media traction, and so we were required to respond to it. We had this beautiful letter from a customer that said, I'm new to town, I'm a single mum, I've got a new baby, I'm suffering from postnatal depression, I don't know anybody. And I went to the Narang Library the other day and I happened upon a cupcake making session, and I sat with it and I made some friends and I learnt how to make cupcakes, and I learnt about Baby Rhyme Time while I was there, and I've started up a little business of my own selling cupcakes, and I just wanted to thank you. So ta-da! Here's our letter. So we keep them forever. So there's two of these, they're probably 2 years old now. Just keep them forever. Or just the wealth of them grow, and you'll be able to pull them out whenever you need them. And they are priceless, and also they're great news stories for the staff to share. I never take having to justify our programs as a negative to council, and we do quite a bit. We're in the middle of a full council review, and customer services always comes. We're in the community services division, and they always get questioned quite a lot. I think when I worked in Mackay City Council, I heard one of the councillors say, "Oh, they're the frilly bits." So we quite often get a lot of scrutiny, and we're having a full review of our area at the moment, which is fine. That's their job to do that, and it's good for us to have a good look at ourselves as well. And I never take it as a negative. The fact that we're in the spotlight occasionally means that we're doing something right. With the amount of activity that we generate, I'd be very disappointed if no one noticed us. Fortunately, those that concern themselves with the cost of service delivery were genuinely surprised during this service review to find that the program's budget, that is the amount paid to our providers last year, was just $14,000. We on the Gold Coast, I'm just trying to find my stats, sorry. So we've had a significant increase in the amount of programs that we run on the Gold Coast, and we've done, what I'm going to get to is how we've done that. We've gone, sorry, just find it here. So a little bit like Patty, and I know that we're not the most, we don't do the most programs and don't have the greatest attendance, but with a $14,000 budget, we do pretty damn well. So we've gone from 1,400 programs a year to now well over 9,000. And we've had an increase in attendance to library programs of over 680% to over 173,000 participants without any extra funding or staffing. And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about today, is how we've done that. And we have 4 models. The first model is our staff delivered, and this is the programs that are absolutely core to our business. So anything to do with literacies, essentially, are run by our staff, and they do it really, really well. So all the story times and baby rhyme times, the digital literacy programs, and we've also recently, in the last 2 years, incorporated the STEM programs. So our staff have become robotics gurus, and they're really into coding, and they take the Lego Mindstorm stuff home and they make robots, and they run the programs really, really, really well. So that's become core business for us, and our library staff run those programs, and it's not a really high cost because once you have developed those programs, you can share them around between all of our libraries, so it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel every time. And the second model, which is the one that's made the vast difference to the way that we do programming, is through community partnership. So one of the best and most effective things we've done is to share the responsibility for the development and delivery of customer programs with our library staff. Originally, all library programs were organised centrally through a programs team of 3 in library administration. And there was also myself, but I actually had to come to realise that I actually wasn't helping. I was just lobbing ideas in and hoping that they'd go forth and deliver them. So I don't count myself. There's 4, but I take myself out of that because I'm just a hassle, really. We do, however, have 180 library staff, and they are just the most magnificent source of connections and ideas and enthusiasm. So once I said to them, and it wasn't overnight, but it did happen, I think there's an ad in that, once we brought them on board, they were able to contact or get in contact with their own personal networks, and the people that come across the counters who they find networks with, or they would just go out into the community and find people who would run for usually an hour and a half, a program free of charge in the library. And they were just such a huge, rich source of ideas and opportunities. Through the community connections that staff have, both through their personal lives and the library customers, staff have tapped into their local community, partnering with business professionals, individuals with a passion, and community groups to volunteer their time and knowledge to share with community. The depth and range of activities is too diverse and too many to go into here, but they extend from palmistry to pain management, through writing a resume and mending clothes, to quitting smoking, to setting up a small business website. In the past year alone, over 2,046 programs were delivered by community groups, business professionals or enthusiasts at no cost to council. They've provided new learning and connecting experiences to Gold Coast residents. It's true that these are perhaps less deep and meaningful relationships. Some of them come and they go, sort of like a one-night stand, I guess, more than a meaningful relationship. But they add enormous value, and they make the service that we offer so much richer than it would otherwise be. Without the support of the community, we could not run anywhere near the volume or range of events which allows us to appeal to a much wider audience. And while it might seem that this has been possible due to the Gold Coast being a city of over 500,000 people, I used to work in a small town west of Rockhampton called Billawheeler, population 5,000, and we used the same model there. So just because I can see a few yawns in the audience, and because I love your energy, if you just have a little think, or if you've got a piece of paper, you can start doing it yourself. Just think about all the different contacts that you have in your community, whether it be a business or, we use travel agents and physiotherapists and anybody that you can imagine that is a part of your community who might actually come to your library and present for 1 hour to your community. And I think you'll be hugely surprised about how many people there are. So just take two minutes and just brainstorm some ideas. Thanks, everyone. Did you consider organisations that have a function of health promotion? The Heart Foundation, the Dental Association, the hobbyists, the beekeepers, the cheese makers, the paper makers, the computer businesses. They can do things like how to make a good website, how to market your business through social media, solicitors, what to do when considering writing a will, the allied health professionals like psychologists, speech therapists, or even doctors. We've had the travel doctors come and talk to people about what to consider when they're travelling. So, and we're constantly astounded at the generosity of spirit for people to not only agree to share their time and knowledge, but also now, after having done this for several years, the community come to us, even wanting to be included in the programs. This not only enables a great diversity of topics and covers a broad range of interests, but there are also some benefits for those folk as well. So they get all the benefits of what volunteering does: a sense of achievement and fulfilment, personal development and a boost to their self-esteem, a sense of belonging and of connection to community, and an opportunity to meet new people and make new friends. We've got an Indigenous artist on the Gold Coast who, he's an elderly gentleman, beautiful man, Sylvester Cook, and always wanted to share his passion for his art, but was really, really shy in front of people. And so this was a really nice way for him to develop some expertise in working and some skills in working with people. So Sylvester came and we gave him just a really small group, assisted by a staff member initially, of artists or emerging artists. And Sylvester did a little workshop at no charge. He wanted to do that with those people. And now in the last school holidays, we were able to pay Sylvester to actually run workshops for large groups of children, and they were crazy, and he managed it beautifully. So just watching his development over the last 12 months has been really lovely as well. We've engaged with thousands of volunteer community partners, has not been without problems, but if you're aware of these, you can avoid them and having to learn the hard way like we did. I'll give you a few tips to try and avoid that. We learned pretty quickly that you need to be very clear what your expectations are, and we ask presenters to sign an agreement that details our responsibilities as well as their own. Our most important rule is thou shalt not just flog a product. While presenters are welcome to bring along their business cards, they must share their knowledge about their craft and not their product. For example, the man who gives talks on beekeeping, and he does that regularly to a packed house, as many people as we can fit in the room. There should never be a shortage of bees. I don't understand it. While he can give his presentation, he can't mention that he also sells the hives and the equipment, but he can leave his business card there and people can collect that and be in contact with him later. And likewise, the lady who does the essential oils, I think there's a dozen of those on the Gold Coast, and they can talk about the benefits of essential oils, but they can't say that they sell essential oils. They can just leave their business cards there. We've had a physiotherapist who's come and done sessions on how to avoid running injuries. And again, he can't say, I'm up the road, make an appointment before you go. And we make that really, really clear. And 99.9% of our partners have been very happy to do that. We also have worked hard with, divesting the responsibility of engaging all of these presenters with our staff has also had the added benefit of them taking a real ownership over that event. So they tend to talk it up a lot in their library. They promote it really well. They want to see it be successful. And so we have some little protocol about how we present, and we don't just open the door and let the speaker come in, close the door behind them and sort of walk off. It's our program as much as it is the person presenting. And so we really take a great deal of ownership over that, and we do the introductions and we're there to support them throughout the session. And we always have books on the topic, so if it's a beekeeping one, we wheel the trolleys in, or we have some display shelves now in all of our programming areas where we can do displays on the topics to try and cross-promote that collections as well. And we have forms for registering interest and ways and means of sharing feedback amongst staff. So if somebody's not particularly good at doing it, then we sort of share that knowledge, because quite often some people come with the very best of intent, but they're just not particularly engaging, and so we might just try them for 1 or 2 times, and then, you know, that was our one-night stand. The third model that I mentioned earlier, which is paid presenters, we use very, very infrequently, and we only do it where there's an expertise level that we don't have ourselves, or where it's just protocol to do that. So things like our writers' workshops, where we would engage published authors to come, we pay for those. Most of the Indigenous workshops, we would pay for those sorts of things. And the teen workshops, we almost always have to pay for those, because just to get the teens in the library, we need to get something far more engaging than we can usually pull out of our craft supply box. So, but those are the minority, and so with all of those programs, our entire budget for that, for an annual, is $14,000. And the final model of our staff is our staff coordinated, volunteer delivered programs. These capacity building programs that require a greater investment of time and expertise that is affordable. While staff time is required to recruit and manage volunteers, the programs they deliver are enormously valuable for the community. And these are actually some of my personal favourite ones. So just before the last election, we had a charming Premier who cut all funding to almost all social services in Queensland, including adult literacy. And I think it was almost the year of reading, when, you know, we were all talking about ridiculous levels of low literacy in Australia, and including funding to the TAFE was cut as well. So I jumped online one day, and do you have the Reading Writing Hotline? I'm sure that's a national number, and I just pretended that I needed some assistance with literacy, and the guy who was reading a script probably in Canberra said, "No, can't help you." So we partnered with TAFE, and somebody who no longer had a job at TAFE developed a little one-day training program for us, and we put our volunteers through that so that they can do one-on-one literacy tutoring with community. We didn't know how it would go, because if you can't read, library's not really the place that you hang out. So we promoted it at places. We just put up really basic posters all over the city in places like laundromats and support services and things, social security centres, that just said, "Need help reading, call this number." And it's sort of like a dating service now. It's grown to capacity. We always said, look, we can really only manage 75 volunteers. So we have 75 volunteers, and we have 75 learners, and I think we've got another 9 on the books. And so when one leaves, we'll rotate them around. Some of them have stayed for a couple of years, and some of them just come, build their confidence, and then leave. It's astounding how many retired teachers are in our community, and you probably have them as well, and they're just dying to help. So that's been very successful. Am I getting the wrap up? Yep. Okay. The other one that we use the volunteers for is our English conversation circles. And we have a lot of new migrants to the Gold Coast, and English is not their first language. So again, we get volunteers, we put them through a little course on how to support English conversation, English as a second language. And it's an informal process. People just come in a room, and the facilitator just gives them a topic to talk about today. It could be shopping, or I don't know, clothes, or whatever it is. They give them a topic, and people just talk around that topic. It's a really safe environment to get it wrong. And people from all backgrounds and nationalities, it's really, really lovely outcome. And we have something like 9,000 people came through that program last year. I'm skipping stuff. Okay, thank you. We also try to tap ourselves into the community in other unexpected places. So as library staff, we really know what we can do and where our benefit is, but sometimes we really need to explain that to other people. One such example is I was invited to a meeting called Community Connections. It was a gathering of community stakeholders brought together to discuss the rise of unrest in a public housing block. I was invited by somebody I'd previously worked with on similar projects in a different council, but the government official who was organising the meeting looked kind of embarrassed that I was there and said, "I'm sorry, perhaps the problem wasn't explained to you. My issue is about behaviour in a housing block. We have a block of 228 units with mixed tenants, from elderly single women to young unemployed men, and they don't get on." The real problem, of course, was just a lack of purpose and sense of community in these blocks. Behaviour such as kicking over the neighbour's carefully tended pot plants or bouncing a ball on the adjoining wall inside your unit for hours on end were just because they didn't know the people next door. If they knew them and respected them, or at least cared about them slightly, they wouldn't be doing those things. We suggested that city libraries might run some basic computer classes specifically for block residents, to not only provide some new skills, but also to get people out of their homes and to connect with their neighbours. Our public housing official was interested but sceptical. We ran the class for 2 weeks, 2 hours a week for 5 weeks. It was filled to capacity. Everyone came to every session. And the mixed class of elderly and young men and women spent time in the session helping each other, making conversation over cups of tea in the breaks, learning new skills, growing in confidence and connecting with their own and broader community. We've been asked to do it again and again and again. These people live in the same block. They'd never met each other. They didn't care whose pot plant they kicked over. They do now. So, to wrap it up, some lessons learned: be organised, strategic and careful. We've created guidelines for presenters. One thing, just because it just popped into my mind at the most inappropriate moment, if you're doing health sessions and things on, we have a lot of sessions on mental health. We always make sure that the people delivering those sessions are qualified to do that. So that's just a tip. Just make sure that they're actually, not just out of the goodness of their heart, going to mess with someone else's mind. Listen to the customer. I tried at one stage to pull back on events I thought were less defendable, things like palmistry and astrology. However, when I looked at the statistics and the feedback, I found that these sessions were all very well attended and that the adulation was undeniable. The sessions cost us nothing. They bring like-minded people together. They keep individuals engaged in their communities and their minds and their lives active. So we now offer many sessions of a metaphysical nature, and I'm happy to defend them should the need arise. Potential community partners don't always recognise the role, reach and impact of the public library. We need to connect the dots for them. But the more we do this, the faster the word gets out. Other organisations suggest libraries as partners or look to us for ideas about who else they can work with. Just a week before I came away, the Gold Coast Health High Planning Strategy meeting was held, and I was invited to go along because they recognised that where else can they touch base with 267,000 customers directly, or 8,000 customers come through a library a day, and they were like, ooh, instant audience. So, and when we told them about the amount of programs that we ran, they were kind of gobsmacked as well, but it was nice that they recognised it. Funding is not a barrier, it's just a challenge. And where there's a will, there's a way. If not straight away, park it and take up another project until the next opportunity arises. Make sure that you capture the all-important feedback and tap into the knowledge, networks and enthusiasm of your staff. It helps to share the load and it creates variety in the program of events. It also creates opportunity for more community involvement and to build a culture of innovation and creativity. I've noticed a change in our culture in our workplace where innovation and ideas are met with excitement and enthusiasm, and staff truly 100% understand that the library's role, their role and impact in the community is far greater than encouraging and supporting reading. Staff talk with energy and about community need and social outcomes and connectedness. It's really worthwhile. While aligning our priorities of those with council is obvious and makes sense, Oh, sorry, I'm exhausted. Are you bored with me? Sorry. Not only do we exist to help council progress its priorities, but it's also proven to be beneficial time and again in providing meaning to what we do to those that fund us. It's hard to argue that City of Gold Coast Library's program of community events are not core business when they align directly to the themes of council's vision. And finally, we learned that utilising the knowledge, skills and generosity of our community to provide programs is a powerful way to build capacity and resilience. Thank you.
I'm sure you'd all like to join me in thanking Alison, and I'm sure we've got some questions. I was quite amazed with how much you're actually doing with so little. I know our budgets are all stretched, so I'm sure we've got some questions about that.
Hi, Alison, over this side. Hello. I just wondered if you could speak a little bit more and a bit slower, because I couldn't keep up, about the measures that you keep, that you can respond to every situation. So you talked about reading and writing, and then there was about 4 more, and I missed all of them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So our program plan is, we have pillars, we call them pillars, that support our community, and they are reading and writing, computer and online, or we changed it for a little bit there, called Digital Cities, history and heritage, said reading and writing, history and heritage, what have I missed? Lifestyle and learning, and creative and innovative. Is it? Hello.
Hi, Alison. This question, sorry, bear with me while I try to frame it into words. Particularly interested, like when you started doing the presentations and workshops with community members, and particularly community businesses. You mentioned how during the presentation part that they can't just promote their goods. How did you go about that with the promotion of that? Like, did you just go, there's a beekeeping workshop, or did anyone ever go, well, no, it needs to say beekeeping workshop with Beekeeper Bob, because that's who I am, and you need to, like, how did you balance that?
To be honest, we do it. We'll put their name in our program and say, you know, presented by, but no one ever has asked us to do that. So it really does come from a good place when people give up their time and energy, and I think that's what I've been most astounded by, is very, very, although, you know, there's obviously that I might get some new customers here at the back of their mind. I think because they've come from through the staff, and so they've probably started off as friends and relatives and neighbours and regular customers, so they're doing us a favour and they're happy to do that.
Hi, just a question about costs for people attending these presentations by the volunteers. Are there any? Is it all free? Or?
Everything's free.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering, in terms of having a large multi-branch system, is there more programs coming out of certain libraries? Is there any need for consistency in terms of programming across your branches? Do you have maybe some libraries where there's more passion about things, so you get a lot of programs about the same thing, and how do you work with that across all your branches?
Yeah, there are definitely, and there are some teams who just really quickly embraced it, and the calendar of events that we used to publish, we've gone online now, we're saving paper and money. We used to be, all Robina library programs, or a vast amount of them. As I said, we're quite a competitive city, So it didn't take long for everyone to go, oh God, we better get our act together, and they started doing it as well. So look, it ebbs and flows a little bit depending on what else is happening in the libraries, but given that, you know, it's actually not far to drive from one library to the other. You know, some people may not cross the river, but it's actually only, you know, half an hour drive to most places across the city. So I'm fairly relaxed about how much they do, and I know that if they've got a lot else on in their libraries, without, you know, they might have refurbishments going on or stock takes or, you know, something else that's equally important in that particular month, then that's okay. The rest of the city kind of carries it for that month. So. And I don't want to see anybody get burnt out either. I think it tends to be a little bit like children's services, that you get high burnout. So it's okay for you to have your little spurt of ideas and then sort of relax a little bit. But it's always an engaging program. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Did you run into any roadblocks or challenges with risk assessment or risk analysis, and how did you work through those?
Yeah, we've had a couple. I love your hair. That's so cool. So everyone's going to look at you now, sorry.
Hello, everyone.
Well, we've had the odd occasion, particularly first when I said, you know, I just jumped in straight away and probably didn't think those sorts of things through very carefully in the beginning, but, you know, you learn. Now I'm very careful when I pick up the calendar of events and I go, oh, cooking, good. What are we cooking and what with? Is there naked flames? People are pretty sensible. We haven't, you know, apart from the naked flame cooking, the one pot cooking things, but we mitigate it now. You know, we go away and we do our risk assessment, which is a huge amount of paperwork, but it's worth doing. It's just, you know, we'll do it once and then we'll roll that program out across the city if it's worthwhile, so it's fine.
I was just regarding your community programs, when you mentioned you've conduct 2,000 of them. Do you have a budget? I know you mentioned 14,000 across the year. How do you go about marketing your those programs? Do you have a marketing budget, or?
Here's a long story. I was going to talk about a little bit about promotion, but I realised somebody after us was doing it. We used to publish a little calendar of events, and the price escalation in that, it needed to come inside to be designed, and then the price just went through the roof. So we've stopped doing that and we just do it online, and I have one part-time staff member who just pulls together an e-newsletter, and we publish that. And the links in the e-newsletter link directly to our booking system. So, and you can open it up on your phone. It's actually much better than the little book, although people were wedded to it. Open it up on your phone, find your program, click on it, book. It's easy. So, no, we don't have a marketing budget.
Hi, Alison. You know, as people have been mentioning, with the increasing restraints on libraries, budgeting and so forth from the local government areas, have you found that you've had any kind of pressure put on sort of cost recovery by going down the commercial route, having to sell merchandise or renting out meeting rooms and all of that to sort of offset some of the costs?
Cost is kind of our non-negotiable. We just keep pushing it back. Yes, it comes up. We even had a councillor say, you know, at the last budget meeting, couldn't we charge $5 each for membership or something? So fortunately, she just got booed down. So but look, it comes up all the time, and we just keep pushing back. We just feel like if we open that little doorway just a little bit, that they're just going to get a wedge in there and keep pushing, so we just keep slamming it shut.
Once again, I'd like to thank Alison for her great presentation. I've certainly learnt a few things from that, and I'm sure she'll take some more questions as we all go to lunch. Thanks, Alison.